The first time I got behind the wheel of a Tesla was almost 2 years ago when I first started MrMobile, but I've never gotten over it. The skin-stretching acceleration, the futuristic features, the fact that it never needed a drop of gasoline. To a guy just starting a YouTube tech channel in 2016, the Model S and Model X were the ultimate manifestation of mobile technology. And the Model 3 promised much of the same experience in a more affordable package. Flash forward to 2018, that Model 3 is finally rolling off the production line, and I've just spent 2 days behind the wheel. What I've found is a car that delivers on many of its promises, but which ultimately might make me want a Model S instead. Folks, I want to say up front that 2 days is not enough time for me to call this a Model 3 review, especially since I wasn't able to test the most important factor when choosing an EV, range between charges. If you want to see a full review of the Model 3 once I have more time with it, please do subscribe to the MrMobile on YouTube, and while you're at it, check out my co-pilot Phil's video as well over at Modern Dad. In person, the Model 3 is much more attractive than I thought it would be. In photos, the car seems to end a bit prematurely at the tail, and the lack of even a false grille on the nose also gave me pause. But standing alongside the genuine article, neither of these things bothered me as much. The looks are elevated by the midnight silver paint job and the 19-inch performance wheels, neither of which is standard at the entry level. Yeah, that $35,000 price point everyone talks about for the Model 3, this isn't that. More on that in a bit. The rest of the exterior stays true to its Tesla roots. The front trunk, or frunk, is smaller than what you'll find on the Model S, but I think the criticism that it's gotten, that it's some kind of glorified glove box, is unfair. Sure, it's not as comfy to squeeze into when you're goofing off, but it is spacious enough for at least a medium load of groceries. And then you've got all the space in the rear trunk as well. You'll notice that there's no hatchback here, but again, maybe because I'm not carting around pet carriers or surfboards, I don't mind the sacrifice. Because what you get in exchange is a roof that's almost completely glass from front to back, which makes the car feel much roomier than it really is. Moving up to the front of the cabin, we come to a subjective impasse. The Model 3 dashboard looks like nothing else. There's no instrument cluster, no proper head unit, no pronounced air vents. All you get is this wooden dash running the width of the car, and a center-mounted 15-inch touchscreen. Every gauge and display you're used to reading, and nearly every control you're used to using, is on that screen. On the good side, Tesla has done a great job making the software cleaner and quicker than it is on the Model S, whose console had the performance of an Android tablet from 2011. And it's kind of cool, in an ultra-minimalist way, to have just one big screen and nothing else. If fully autonomous cars are the future, then this is a very slick preview of that future. But we still drive in the present. And in the present, it's still very helpful to have controls you can feel, rather than smooth glass that you can't. Tesla understands this, of course. 2 4-way joysticks on the steering wheel give you shortcuts to things like media controls, there's a limited voice interface, and you still have manual stalks for windshield wipers and the drive shifter. Speaking of, let's shift into drive and see how the Model 3 feels on the road. Reviewing the specs before my test drive, I kind of expected this car to feel like a slug compared to the sportier models I drove 2 years ago. This one is a single motor trim, since the dual drive won't be coming until later on, and its quoted acceleration is about 60% less than the fastest Model S you can buy today. But, funny thing, a 0 to 60 time of 5.1 seconds is still insanely fast. At least compared to the economy gas burners I usually drive when I'm using Zipcar or Maven. I don't own a car, so those are my primary vehicles. Also, Drag Times reports that it actually beat Tesla's advertised acceleration, going from 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds with their Model 3. While Modern Dad and I didn't clock our test car, it was definitely sportier than I expected, which made quick merges and fast passing much easier.
Wow, that's great.
Those things that everyone talks about when it comes to electric vehicles, the low center of gravity and the instantly available torque, well, they always bring them up for a reason. You never feel like the car is going to have trouble sticking to the road on a quick turn. And with a Tesla, you never feel like you need more power than you have, either. The other thing everyone always talks about on a Tesla is autopilot, the company's name for its custom cocktail of adaptive cruise control and lane keeping. But to be honest, this test drive made me question whether I'd drop the extra dough on it. It seems buggier than it did when I used it on the Model S and X. It often failed to activate on the Model 3, even in ideal conditions. These days, autopilot is also much more insistent that you keep your hands on the wheel, and if you don't, it punishes you by disabling itself for the remainder of the trip you're on. To be clear, I'm not complaining about that. Autonomous driving has had a rough couple years, and I'm all for anything that makes it safer. It's just that Tesla made huge promises in 2016 about advancements coming with the Model 3. There are 8 cameras mounted on the car in an attempt to make it capable of full autonomy eventually. But today, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's developed much in 2 years. Same with the self-parking feature, which took many more attempts on the Model 3 than it did on the Model S, and it was several times slower than just parking the car yourself. The car did get a software update immediately after we wrapped filming, because of course it did, so I'll revisit this in the long-term review. Another sacrifice when it comes to the Model 3, no more free lunch, free charging. You see, buying a Model S or X entitles you to 400 kilowatt hours of juice per year at any of Tesla's 1,100 supercharging stations for free, or unlimited power if you bought the S or X using a referral code. But the Model 3 doesn't fall under that program, so you pay for every watt you take. Now, of course, it's much cheaper than you'll pay for gas, but it's still just one more sacrifice you need to account for if you get a Model 3. Oh, I said I didn't get to test the range figures, but for what it's worth, Tesla promises between 220 and 310 miles of range per charge, depending on which battery you get, with a top-up rate of 170 miles for every 30 minutes you spend on a supercharger. Before we drive on through to the conclusion, let's spend a minute on the minutiae. I love the inclusion of a dedicated charging bay for mobile phones and additional center console storage space. I don't love the fingerprinty plastic those covers are made of, or the fact that you need to baby them closed or risk a scolding by the computer. Despite the Florida sun beating down through the glass roof, the AC had no trouble keeping my Boston skin frosty cool. For colder climes, there are warmers on all 5 seats. The mirrors are all smaller than I like, but the wide-angle rear camera makes up for it, as do the proximity sensors that tell you just how close you're getting to nearby obstacles. The steering is tight and responsive, but can be made mushier if you want through a software toggle. There's no heads-up display, which I was bummed out by, but I quickly got used to checking the screen for my speed. And while there's a key card for guest drivers, the experience is much smoother if you sync the car with your phone, which lets you just walk up to it to unlock. And you can control almost everything through an app, including, yes, the horn.
Well, that's not quite a tootle, is it? It's not a tootle.
Woo. As I said at the top, the Model 3 delivers on many of the promises made back in 2016. I still think it has the chance to democratize the electric vehicle to an extent, thanks to its more accessible price. But once you tally up all the upgrades in the trim that I drove, you come out to not a $35,000 car, but a nearly $57,000 one. That's getting up into used Model S territory, folks, and you don't need to wait on a list to buy one of those. Then I take into account the free supercharging on the Model S, and the more traditional cockpit design, and my personal preference for a larger vehicle with, in my opinion, more attractive lines. And I'm very tempted to give up my spot in line for the Model 3 and make the jump over to the S. But to make my final decision, I'll need to make a full review, and that will hopefully be coming soon. This video was brought to you by Thrifter. Thrifter is a new way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value and not hype. Check out the latest deals at thrifter.com and tell them Mr. Mobile sent you. For a lot more footage and a different take on our 2-day test drive, be sure to check out Modern Dad's video on the Tesla Model 3. As I recall, he canceled his pre-order, and you might want to find out why. Please share this video if you found it helpful in figuring out your own feelings on the world's most buzzworthy electric car, and please subscribe so you don't miss that full review. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.